Well, despite some of the unfortunate things that happened for Colin Baker in his time as the Doctor, he did get to do a very special episode that is probably even more special in some of the things it appears to imply. You know, I mean, whether wittingly or unwittingly, one can read an awful lot into the two Doctors. So it's special for a lot of reasons. There's two Doctors in it. You get an old Doctor to return in the form of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, and sadly, this would be his final appearance as the second Doctor, as he passed away not long after this. But there's so much in it that's odd, and as was the case for the most part of Doctor Who, simply implies things, a bit vague, and then just moves on, and you can decide what you thought that was. Unlike today, where I spell it all out for... Yeah, you know. Anyway, so the two Doctors, so you have this story that opens up with the second Doctor and Jamie. If only Zoe could have been there. Oh, man. Boy, is Zoe and Perry together, huh? Yeah, well, it didn't happen. Which is interesting because, what era is this? Well, it kind of insinuates it's one you've never seen before. So, well, all right, we'll get to that. As the basic plot is, it appears it's already poses a lot of questions because the second Doctor shows up at this space station to meet an old friend named Dastari, and says he's on the business he's been sent by the Time Lords to get him to stop his experiments in time travel. So right off the bat, what do you mean you've been sent by the Time Lords? Because Hartnell and Troughton's Doctors, well, they were the original fugitive Doctors. They were on the run. The first Doctor had stolen the TARDIS and was on the run with his granddaughter Susan. And then, of course, he regenerates into the second Doctor. And until the second Doctor was captured by the Time Lords at the end of War Games, he had been on the run all that time. So the idea of him having any special missions for the Time Lords was just not in the cards. It was that case afterwards. Certainly, you know, the third Doctor, fourth Doctor, and on you go. And even the sixth Doctor here, he realized he had been manipulated into a mission for the Time Lords. So that's something that's post second Doctor era for things like that to happen. Certainly not up front anyway, but I don't think they were manipulating him at the time, but I suppose one could go back and say perhaps there was something like that going on behind the scenes or what have you, if you wanted to explore that. But here he just comes right up and says, yeah, I'm on a mission with the Time Lords. And so it already suggests there's something odd, chronologically. And you would have to think, well, how can this be? Well, they're Time Lords, so they can manipulate time in any way they want, but it suggests all that. So anyway, he goes in there, and there's already a nefarious plot going on. So it turns out the guy's a biogeneticist, and he's been experimenting with this race, androgams or whatever, and well, they're just really nasty. One of them, all he wants to do is eat all the time, and that includes he wants to eat Jamie. Yes, because he thinks human meat should be pretty tasty, since he hasn't partaken of it yet. And then the other androgam is the one that Dastari experimented on and made her a more advanced being. And, well, that's played by Servalan. So another special thing is Jacqueline Pierce appears, who, thinking about the Ronnie, Jacqueline Pierce could have been the Ronnie. That would have been an interesting thing. Had they had a regeneration or something like that. And then, can you imagine Paul Darrow being the Master? I could. That would have been cool. Yeah, well, what might have been. But anyway, there she is, and she's the one really in charge, of course. And they're in a deal with the Suntarans, who can travel through time, but they wanted, apparently they're limited in what they can do. They want to be able to travel through time on par with how the Time Lords do it. And so they attack this space station, and so the deal went south, it seems, but at first that's kind of what it was. They wanted the Doctor. Because Dastari claims he can get the genetic material from the Doctor that is special to Time Lords. It's a molecular stability that they achieve through time travel, which is another one of these things that pretty much substantiates something that makes certain recent episodes impossible. But anyway, so never mind about that. That's the deal for the second Doctor. Meanwhile, the sixth Doctor begins to have a sensation of something happening to him, and he's not quite sure what's that about. And he begins to think that perhaps a former self has died, and now he's just an anomalous temporal mistake. And so he goes to the station, and this is the aftermath of the Centauran attack, and it's all, laid to waste. And he's like, oh, what's going on? And they find Jamie. And so this is his clue as to what's going on. And eventually they all end up in Spain, and that's pretty much where the rest of the show goes. Servalan and Dastari and what's his name? Shaki, the chef. Well, they murdered this old lady and are to take over her house. It's really awful. And the Suntarans, of course, they want to get back to their war with the Rutons, but they want that Time Lord DNA. And so that's the plot, and that's what they're going to do. And then the sixth Doctor with Perry and Jamie show up to thwart that. In the meantime, just about all the villains involved are stabbing each other in the back, and the Suntarans come across as pretty stupid. I enjoyed the episode, and of course, especially since I say it's rather special. There's some things that are pretty flawed. I mean, the Suntaran commander here was probably the worst looking one they've had. I don't know what happened there. But he ends up dying and turns into a big pile of snot. Because the Doctor outfoxes him. The sixth one does. And so on and so forth. But then later Servalan falls for the same trick. And so there you go. And there's an interesting thing where they even, Servalan, I guess, had the hots for the second Doctor and wanted him to be transformed into an androgyne to be her consort. And so the Dastari tried to merge his DNA and all that. So they have a silly little romp. Not with Servalan, unfortunately. But and they do that. I mean, it was all right for what it was, but it resulted in this guest star getting stabbed. And at first I thought they were going to reveal that it was a mere flesh wound and that he was overacting. But no, he just dies there in the restaurant. And I was like, holy crap. Yeah. So I was rather surprised by that. But, well, there it was. But anyway, of course, they solve the problem, and the Suntarans are defeated pretty easily, and then Servalan falls for the trick. And then, well, I guess they're all good with Dastari after the end of that, which I wouldn't have been, but, to each their own, I guess. And there you go. One of the other advantages of this one is it was so hot in Spain that the Doctor didn't wear his coat, and that was one of the pluses because it's such a hideous coat. Yeah, it sure is. And so that worked out a lot better. But I was really concerned because you could get heat stroke and whatnot. So Perry should have been allowed to just walk around in a bikini. That would have been great, which would have been even better with Zoe around doing the same. That would have been an excellent thing. But a missed opportunity to be sure. So how can the second Doctor be there? So the theory goes that since he says he's on a mission for the Time Lords, which is telling, is that before he was allowed to regenerate into the third Doctor, he was recruited to do these special missions for the Time Lords. And some have thought even his appearance in the Five Doctors was part of that. When he goes, he's allowed to visit the Brigadier. But this one plays more into it, and even like the graying of his hair, which is funny. I remember it doing that, but I hadn't seen the episode in a long time, and when I saw it, I said, well, it wasn't all that gray, you know, but it was gray. So the idea is that he's in mid-regeneration, like they slowed it down because Pertwee's hair was white, you know. And that's the deal. But then, well, how is Jamie there, you know? Or they just decided, all right, he'll need a companion. We'll go back and get you Jamie back and, I guess, undo the mind wipe. And then when they're done, okay, he goes back and they wipe his memory again. I guess. But this would have been one of the missions that they sent him on. For whatever reason, they needed the Doctor to do it. And they couldn't just send some other Time Lord. So that's the only real way to get around it. Even though, boy, I tell you, the War Games is pretty specific. It fades to black, and he's supposedly regenerating. But if what was it, the Celestial Intervention Agency, I believe it's called, they stepped in. Hang on a minute, we've got a higher court order to cease this. And so I don't know, they do some time shenanigans to halt the regeneration because they needed him. Now, why not just let him regenerate and be the agent then? Well, now the regeneration process would put him out of sorts for too long. We want to get this over with. And you can understand with time travel and stuff, his missions, however many there were, they could be done pretty quickly within, the span of time that they're at on Gallifrey, and they send him out. But you would have to do something like that because he's got Jamie, he's there, he's talking about working for the Time Lords, plus he's got a remote control device so he can just signal the TARDIS to him whenever he needs. Which is, like the Ronnie had in the other episode, but apparently it wasn't really her original idea. So he's got that, and that would have been something the Time Lords just gave him, And so there you are. That's an interesting thing, what it insinuates there for the second Doctor. I'm not a fan of the theory that he regenerates into Dr. Ruth after that and then runs away. I guess just leaves Jamie behind. Yeah, what happened there? And then eventually gets captured and regenerates into John Pertwee. Yeah, no, I always thought it would be to stop screwing around with idiocy and laziness like that. With an entirely new Doctor, and just make her Jodie's successor. I mean, you paint the new crew coming in to work on that show, but that's how they probably should have done it. If for nothing else, it's just a decent thing to do. You cast her in this and just exploit her for that, for those, first black female Doctor headline. Yeah, that's pretty tacky. So she should have gotten it, maybe some specials or whatever. You want to move on so that you can choose your own Doctor for the, or something like that, but at least that. But they didn't think of that. They're just stupid. They're just slapping stuff around. So, yeah. So, but the idea that Troughton's Doctor did these extra missions in between becoming the third Doctor theoretically works for it. I suppose, I don't know, maybe Big Finish has done some, untold tales of the second Doctor and that type of thing, and maybe they did. And that could be the case. But, yeah, it works. It's just kind of, the War Games is pretty final, but it does fade to black, and so, yeah, I guess someone interrupted the proceedings. And say, well, wait a minute, and because you would think it would be some mission that the Doctor was involved in or something he knew, and in this case, he had some relationship or knew this scientist, Dastardi, so I guess that makes it work, I suppose. Anyway, there you go, the two Doctors for the sixth Doctor. Yeah, and and apparently some of this plot was part of the different rights for the five Doctors or something, and they just regurgitated it for this and that sort of thing. So that sort of thing happened, where the Suntarans were supposed to be involved in all that. Or no, it was going to be Cybermen then, and it became Suntarans in this one. So something like that. Anywho, but that happens on just about every show and movie and stuff. So anyway, the two Doctors.